In this video, we will be graphing the cosine function. Example 1 only has an amplitude, which is 5. So that means the max is 5, the min is negative 5. Now I haven't changed anything with the x-axis, so I'm simply just going to label as is. Now when I go to plot, since this time it's cosine, I start up at my max, center line, min, center line, max. Example 2, we've added in a d term. So my center line is y equals 5. The amplitude is 1. So my max is 6. My min is 4. So again, we just label the x-axis exactly how the plot or the table is listed. So I'm going to draw in a dotted line at my center line to make sure that I'm always coming back to it. So since it's a positive cosine, again, I start at the max, center line, min, center line, max. Our next example, we have a d and an a term. So my center line is y equals 3. My amplitude is positive 2 because amplitude is always positive. My max is 5 and my min is 1. So I label the x-axis and I also label my y-axis, drawing in a dotted line. Now, since it's negative cosine, I start down at my min, then go to my center line, then to my max, center line, back down to the min. In the next example, I'm now adding in a b term. So my center line, y equals negative 1. Oops. My amplitude is 5. So my max is 4. And my min is negative 6. So I can label that. But this time, because I've added in a b term, that has affected my period, which is 2 pi over your b term. So that gives me 2 pi over 2. So my period is pi. So this means I start at 0 and go out to pi. Now what I can also find is the spacing between each of the x points. And that's always your period divided by 4. So my spacing is pi over 4. So what that means is the first point starts at 0. If I add pi over 4, my next point is pi over 4. So this is my second point. Then from pi over 4, I add another pi over 4, and I get 2 pi over 4, which is pi over 2. That's my third point. Then I take pi over 2, add another pi over 4. Well, we know pi over 2 is the same thing as 2 pi over 4 plus pi over 4. So that gives me 3 pi over 4, which is my fourth point. And then just to make sure that we haven't made a mistake adding, I can always add it again to make sure that I truly get what my period is, and I do. I get that the last point is pi. So then I go back and fill in my chart. So I have pi over 4, pi over 2, and 3 pi over 4. So that is how my x-axis must be labeled. Once we do that and my center line has been drawn in, then I'm ready to graph. So since it's a negative cosine, I start down at my min, center line, max, center line, min. And this will be our last example. So my center line is actually y equals 0 because there's no d term. My amplitude is 3. So my max is 3, my min is negative 3. Then I take x plus pi, set it equal to 0. So that means x equals negative pi. That's my start value. Then I take x plus pi and set it equal to 2 pi. So that means x equals pi. Then I find my period, which is 2 pi over my b term, which is 1. So my period is simply 2 pi. So then I've determined the spacing between each x value is your period divided by 4. So I get 2 pi divided by 4, which is just pi over 2. So now if I start at negative pi and I add pi over 2, because that's my first spacing, I end up with negative pi over 2. So that's my second point. Then from negative pi over 2 plus pi over 2, it's obviously 0. It's my third point. From 0, I add another pi over 2, so that's pi over 2 again. This time it's positive. And then just to make sure, we want to just double check that pi over 2 plus pi over 2 truly does give me pi, and it does, which is my last point. So now let's go and fill the rest of our chart in. So what I'm going to do again is just extend it so that 0 is in the middle. Negative pi over 2, negative pi, 0, pi over 2, and pi. So I'm just going to kind of ignore that part. And I need to make sure I go up to positive 3, down to negative 3. I don't have to worry about drawing in my center line because my center line is 0. So it's a positive cosine, so it starts up here at my max, center line, min, center line, max.